For more on this, News Central's Austin Azu joins me live to speak on this. Austin, you were on the ground there. We just saw your report live from Yenagoa. And also we understand that the constitutional review hearing is also happening simultaneously in Calabar. What was the general atmosphere like at both centers, both Center A in Yenagoa and Calabar? And how engaged were the stakeholders in the discussions?
Yes, the atmosphere as of yesterday during the public hearing in South Zone, precisely in Center A and Center B. Center A was in Yenagoa, then Center B was in Calabar, the Cross River State capital. The atmosphere was quite different from the usual setting because we have a lot of participants that came with high expectations regarding the constitutional review issues. And don't forget too whether the annual constitutional review has ongoing for a very long time now, over the past decades, and a lot of them have been coming around to be agitating for their various, ethnic demands. Take, for instance, what dominated the conversation yesterday was precisely the resource control came from the political stakeholders, the governors. Of course, there's a consensus opinion and agreement about the resource control, that there's need for the federal government to begin to look at the resource control. Advocacy started for a very long time now. In addition to that is the devolution of power, and thereafter individual ethnic nationality began to demand for their own states. And from Benin down to Bayelsa, which happens to be where the zone, that's the branch A, had their public hearing. State creation and local government creation dominated the conversation from the various stakeholders. And that of the state creation, of course, in present Delta State will have other ethnic nationalities, but Anyoma State dominated the stage. The Ethiopian State dominated the stage. Then the Warri State dominated the stage as well. Now let me break it down. The Anyoma comprises of Delta Igbos, predominantly those found within the Delta North Senatorial District of the state, while the Ethiopian State comprises homogeneously for the Urhobo-speaking part of Delta State, occupying Delta Central, and of course they have 8 local government area exclusively to themselves. Then the Warri State comprises entirely the Shekiris, which have about 3 local governments thereabouts. However, we equally had some other people who agitated that they don't want to belong to one local government area or one state or the other. A case in question is those of them living at Egbanke. Egbanke is in Edo State. They share border with Delta and Edo, and they express diverse opinions about how they are being treated in Edo State, because they believe that they belong to Anyoma's Aziz, that they should be going to Anyoma to get what they want to get. But however, one person who raised the issue that each time they go to the secretariats to go and apply for state of origin, they subject them to speaking of the Benin language, and when they cannot speak it, it becomes very difficult for them. Now, the Torebe demands came from the Ijos, that they have Ijos in Delta, they have in Bayelsa, they have in Rivers, they have in Cross River, they have in Benin. That the Torebe advocacy for the creation of Torebe State that will comprise exclusively for the Ijos speaking part of it. However, other stakeholders like the clergy who came under the umbrella of CAN, they actually demanded that there should be Christian banking system, just like what you have for the Islamic banking state. And not only that, they equally advocated that if there's a Christian banking system, it will equally help the ministry, of course, their beliefs and their whatever, begin to have access to loans and so on and so forth. But surprisingly, in all this conversation, nobody talks about the poverty rate, how to tackle the poverty rate, and nobody talks about how to tackle and how to deal decisively with those charged with money laundering and those government officials who misappropriate public funds and so on and so forth. But very striking, the PANDEF spokesperson, when they presented their papers, they actually talk about the issue of merging the ICPC and that of the EFCC, and they claims that they operate the same functions. In that case, it should be merged. However, they equally went further to talk about federal fiscal federalism, of course, related to the devolution of power, and of course, they equally want a situation whereby the resources that are being taken away from the South to better the lots of every Nigerian, the same resources that is still inherent in the North should equally be taken and to better every lot in the country. Extensively, they spoke at length, and but it was quite a success. There was no rancor, and from what we gathered so far, all the participants arrived at destination safely. And the public hearing has come to an end in South. It's expected that most of their demands will be articulated and reflected in the constitutional review that it seeks to have, that will capture the yearnings of all Nigerians.
Thank you for taking out the time to join us. Austin Azu there, correspondent live from Yenagoa, just giving us a bit of insight following the Constitution Review hearing in the South region from Hall B, All A and All B, and that's at Calabar and of course Yenagoa as well. Once again, thank you. As Austin Azu there. Now, earlier on the program, we did have a spokesperson from PANDEF as well to give us a bit of insight on the Constitutional Review hearing. Now, we'll switch gears away from that now to more here. Joining us now for more on this, we're joined by Professor Julie Nwabogo Umukoro of the University of Port Harcourt. You're welcome to the program, Professor Umukoro. I mean, as a stakeholder at the Constitutional Review hearing, what was your general impression of the deliberations and the level of engagement from participants in the South-South zone?
Yes, very well. First and foremost, I was there in dual capacity. I was there representing my local government area, Ndokwa East, Nelga, where we're asking for recognition, our identity to be put on record that we are Ndoshimidi people, and therefore, we should be recognized as such. And we have also requested for more local government area, and we have actually, passed a vote of confidence on our people who are talking about getting a new state. In other words, we are in support of getting a new state, Anioma state. And then I was also there, to represent myself and on behalf of other women. We have made a number of requests as women, and we are looking at, reserved legislative seats for women. In a situation where we have nearly half of the population as women, and we have less than 5% legislative seats, is not welcome at all. And so we're asking for additional Senate seat per state, and the FCT. We're also asking for additional House of Representative seat per state, and 3 additional state assembly seats for senatorial district. We are also, asking that it should be passed into law that 35% quota be given to women, both, in national and state assemblies. And this should be reflected in the Constitution. Again, that should also have a knock-on effect so that 35% women representation is reflected across elective and appointed position. This should also include party leadership and also public commissions, etc. We're also, asking for reform, of INEC leadership appointment process. We expect that this should not be a presidential prerogative, but should be an independent panel-led system. If that is adhered to, I bet, we'll be aligning with global, good governance practices. We have also requested that laws should be made to protect women. We're looking at gender-based violence, where women sometimes, get, the bitter part of it, by not being given justice. And we're also looking at sexual and economic rights. inclusion of youth, and persons with disability. These are, if we are able to do this, I think, the country would be seen as aligning with other institutions, and other, world powers who have taken, proper democratic processes into consideration.
All right. One of the issues that was also raised at the South-South constitutional review hearing was resource control and devolution of powers. It has now remained a contentious issue, especially in the Niger Delta. What specific recommendations did you or others from your zone make on these matters, specifically resource control and devolution of power?
Yes. It's like we are trying to emulate other world powers. Like we are trying to revisit the issue of state creation of many states in Nigeria. But then if we continue to align ourselves with the federal, whereby even those who are producing the resources are not the ones who have powers, to control it, then it doesn't look proper to me, where everything is made to look like it's a flat rate thing. Because the states are created, states are now requested, are now made to take the same kind of how do I put it? The same contribution is not made to the federal government, but the same people are made to take flat rate offers. Like when it comes to giving out, doling out money for states are given equally, but there are states that produce these resources, they should be given upper hand in controlling whatever they produce from their states. That's how it should be in every establishment.
And for the matter of security, devolution of power, most importantly, insecurity, state policing, and one more is at the top of my head here, but I forget, autonomy. There we go, local government autonomy. What do you say about these three important factors?
Yes, if you have a local policing system, then it means that, security will be better because they are closer to the grassroots. And it will not be bad if we adopt such a system where we will encourage local policing.
Now, I argue that the matter of state resource control might be difficult, and hear me out, right? My argument, and hopefully we can be able to sort of, fine-tune this issue, right? The Niger Delta have clamored for, or rather the South-South has ever clamored for state control of resources. But when you look at the resource itself, it is a commonwealth. It contributes, generally to the country's revenue, which also funds our budget for every year, for every fiscal year. If the state controls that, that also means it's the commonwealth that is controlled, right? And then they argue that, stakeholders have argued that the South itself has not been developed and the cleanup has not happened as it ought to have happened. Hence why the creation of the Niger Delta, the NDDC, was done to oversee all of that when it comes to grassroots, development, and of course, aiding in development from the profits that is gotten from the oil-rich Niger Delta. What would you say to that argument of Commonwealth, of the oil being the Commonwealth, and NDDC was done to replace that, and the fact that the state may not get control of its resources?
I think autonomy is the answer, because that will set the tune for competition. Some states are just there, not even thinking out of the pot what to do. I think state autonomy is the answer for growth. We shouldn't be looking at Commonwealth. Commonwealth will now mean that some persons are pushed to the corner. Some states will not even have anything to offer to the Commonwealth. So those who are offering something to the Commonwealth, they're not recognized, fully recognized. So maybe if we attempt autonomy, let each state man its own affairs. That I think would give us better room for competition. We should try something for different, change. They say is the only permanent. I think we should try something different this time.
Well, as the review continues across the geopolitical zones, the six geopolitical zones in Nigeria, we wait to see what the recommendations will be finally implemented in upgrading the 1999 Constitution. I must say thank you to you, Professor Umukoro, for taking out the time to join us. Professor Umukoro from the University of Port Harcourt joining us as she was part of the delegates there for the review of the Constitution review happening in Yenagoa. Once again, thank you.